joining us live this morning to talk about the ongoing government funding fight is Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for being with us.
Good to be home, even if it's raining.
Definitely. Well, Hawaii, one of 16 states to file a lawsuit against President Trump's emergency declaration.
Yes.
Yeah, this is to fund a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, Trump's national emergency allows him to bypass Congress to use that money from the Pentagon and other budgets as well. So if he were to tap into these budgets, how would it directly impact Hawaii? And do you think that this move could take away from some of our disaster relief funds?
Well, of course. So he wants to grab onto anything that is probably not nailed down as far as he's concerned for his vanity wall. And when a president declares a national emergency, there actually should be a national emergency. And we all know that this is a manufactured emergency in his own mind. So, of course, it led to all the states, the 16 states you mentioned, including Hawaii, filing a lawsuit. And the House will also vote on a resolution, a joint resolution to terminate this national emergency. That is a resolution. I'm sure it'll pass the House. It has to be voted on the floor of the Senate, too.
Now, the border wall was the center of contention for the government shutdown that lasted for several weeks.
Yes.
As that government shutdown ended, there was a threat of a second one, which could have happened as early as this week. What's to prevent that from happening again in the future?
As long as we have a president who behaves in this way, because he actually doesn't care the harm that the first shutdown, which was the longest in history, you know, the 35 days of a shutdown where 800,000 federal workers didn't get paychecks. I've talked to a lot of them, as well as the contractors, and he seemed to have no problems with yet another shutdown so that he can keep his so-called campaign promise, which, by the way, we all know Mexico was to pay for. So I characterize this president as being amoral, and he's a runaway president. And what it does is, with these kinds of decisions that are not supportable, they lead to court challenges, a lot of waste of resources. You know, the state of Hawaii is going to have to pay money to challenge this totally unjustifiable exercise of his so-called powers. So he does this time and again. And my hope is that Congress will act like the separate branch of government, and Congress could have, during the beginning of the last shutdown, have enacted legislation that was passed by the House to keep government running. And Mitch McConnell simply wouldn't do it. He kept saying, I'm going to wait for the president to tell us what he wants. And with this president, you never know what he wants, literally from moment to moment. And therefore, Congress must act as an independent body. Going forward, I hope that that's what's going to happen, so that we can prevent another shutdown or these kinds of fake crises.
And now an increasing amount of Democrats, they're putting their names in the running for president, including Hawaii Representative Tulsi Gabbard, Bernie Sanders as well. So what is your take on the amount of people from your party running for president?
I call it an abundance of riches. We have a lot of highly qualified people who are running, and what's amazing to me is a number of women who are running, because there was a time when one woman running was a big deal, and now we have numbers of women coming forward. And I think that part of it is the recognition that women in our country have become very mobilized because of a lot of the things that Donald Trump is doing that doesn't support our communities, our families, and he continues to attack everyone that doesn't agree with him. So this is a huge reaction. I think the women in this country in particular have awakened to the dangers of this presidency. So it's led to all of these people running for office. I think it's great. They're all going to get to run. I would say when you have this many people in the Democratic side, they're going to get to run their own campaigns, really put their agendas forward, their priorities. They can put themselves forward in a way that they don't have to be attacking somebody else. I think Donald Trump, when he attacked the multiple Republicans who were running, that was such a untoward, unusual kind of a campaign style, which has carried forth, by the way, by all of his divisiveness. I don't think that's a winning strategy for Democratic candidates, to knock everybody else down, and I think we'll have a positive campaign, but it'll be hard fought.
Well, divisiveness seemed to have had an effect on the last election. There was a resurgence of voter enthusiasm, a lot of new energy coming into Congress this year. Do you think that new energy is good for the future of the country, or do you think it represents something more?
Oh, no, the good. Anytime people come forward and vote, that's a good thing. But at the same time, we know that voter suppression tactics are going on in so many countries. And even right now, there's an election for the U.S. House in North Carolina that hasn't even been called because of voter fraud. So what's happening is it's basically voter fraud in the form of voter suppression. So I'd like an attorney general who will look at all of the voter suppression laws that are being enacted across the country. But this new attorney general seems to be much more focused on voter fraud, which rarely happens, and to focus on the voter suppression that keeps people home. And that is real, what is happening.
And Senator Hirono, let's talk about the Green New Deal. That's a plan that you recently joined in on. And this is all to fight climate change. So President Trump had some things to say about it at a rally in El Paso last week. Let's talk about your reaction to his comments, what transpired, and what does the Green New Deal actually do?
The Green New Deal recognizes that climate change is happening. We can see by all the natural disasters, et cetera, and science tells us that climate change is happening. So for all of the climate change deniers to say that the Green New Deal is some kind of a radical position, they are the ones that are taking the radical position by sticking their heads in the sand and denying that climate change is happening and continue to just support the use of fossil fuels. That is the radical thing. And frankly, the Green New Deal has a lot of the kinds of goals that Hawaii already is pursuing, because we have very strong goals in wanting to become energy self-sufficient in electricity by 2045, I believe, and we're well on our way. So Hawaii recognizes that climate change is upon us, and we need to do something about it.
Wouldn't it be more important for Hawaii to recognize that with our temperate climate year-round, with our dependency on the water around us? Just in past months, we've noticed that the water temperatures have risen, the water levels have risen. Now we're getting snow on Maui at low temperatures. It would seem to us that any sort of climate change would be bad for Hawaii.
Of course. And it's not just Hawaii, but I think Florida. There are a lot of indications as to what a change in world temperature will mean to coastal states. And one industry that really knows about all of this is those who provide homeowners insurance, and they already know that climate change is going to make it really difficult for them to provide homeowners coverage. So there are people who recognize the science. It's only that President Trump and his administration that they don't even like to use the word climate change in any of their reports. That's how scared they are. That's how they are climate change deniers, head in the sand. And that's not good for our country right now in the world or future generations.
So let's talk about what your agenda is while you're here in Hawaii. What are you planning on doing while you've got some time here with us?
Well, today I will be going to the food bank, and tomorrow, in fact, I'll be going to the Maui Food Bank, because during the shutdown, of course, the food banks really stepped forward all across the country, but certainly in Hawaii, to provide bags of food, literally, for the federal workers who didn't have their paychecks. So I visited the food banks during the shutdown, and I'm going to be visiting the food banks, and I did, donate. I will be donating my shutdown salary to the 3 food banks in Hawaii. I'll also be visiting with the Pacific Commander, Admiral Davidson, and touch bases with the Pacific Command, especially as the president might want to take some military construction money that could impact some much-needed military construction in Hawaii. So this is what the president is doing. He's taking money that's already been allocated. These are long-term projects. It's not as though the military just says, oh, well, hey, tomorrow we'll go and do this. These are long projects for national security. And the president is willing to sacrifice national security for his vanity wall.
Kind of ironic that the wall is about security. And
no, it's not. It's a vanity project that he has.
And so Senator, I think you have a busy agenda.
Yes, I do.
We want to thank you so much for
Thank you very
thank
much.
you
Good
for
morning.
taking the time. Good morning.
All right, Senator Mazie Hirono joining us here on Good Morning Hawaii. Back in Hawaii for a few days to take care of some business before she heads back to Capitol Hill. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Aloha.
Aloha.
All right, well, we do have much more to come.